Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Since today is Mother's Day, I wanted to share some thoughts on the topic of inheritance. That seemed appropriate since so much of what we inherit comes from our mothers and fathers. What is an inheritance? It's something that we receive from someone else. We might get an inheritance from our parents or family members or others. When you hear the word inheritance, the first thing that probably comes to mind is a bequest, something that you receive after someone passes away that they left to you in their will. But there are different kinds of inheritances. For instance, you can inherit genes. Parents pass genetic information down to their children through their DNA. You receive about 50% of your DNA from your mother and 50% from your father. The genes contained in the DNA that you inherit from your parents can determine traits such as your eye color, whether you have blue or brown eyes, for instance. Some people inherit genes that might make it more likely that they will develop a particular disease, such as cystic fibrosis or certain types of cancer. You can also inherit material things. I think this is what most people think of when they hear the word inheritance. These are physical things, such as money, or a house, or a family heirloom. You might receive it from a family member who passed away and left it to you, or they may have given it to you as a gift during their lifetime. You can inherit a position or a title. King Charles III of Great Britain, who was crowned last weekend, inherited the title upon the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II. Kojun Otani, who is our current Gomonshu, the abbot or spiritual head of the Nishi Honganji, inherited his position through being a descendant of Shinran Shonin, the founder of our tradition. And you can inherit something that is intangible, something that's not a physical item. You might not think of them that way, but qualities or histories or circumstances or other non-material things that you received from others could be inheritances. It might be a personality trait, a hobby or interest, a religious identity, family stories, or even a certain way of looking at the world. For example, maybe you consider yourself a Shin Buddhist and come to OCBC because your parents were Shin Buddhists, and their parents were, and so were theirs. That would be a religious identity that you inherited from your family and decided to keep. So those are some of the different kinds of things that we might inherit. An inheritance is typically something we receive rather than seek out. So it's not something that we ask for. Rather, it comes to us. It comes through biology, like our DNA, or from a family member or a friend because of a decision they made to give it to us. Or for an intangible inheritance, it could be something that we learn or absorb from growing up in a particular family or culture or environment or country. We don't usually expect or plan to receive a particular inheritance. In fact, it may not even be something we want. And in the case of our genes, of course, we don't have a choice. So receiving a particular inheritance is not something we have control over. We get it whether we want it or not. Certainly, we might feel positive about some of the things that we inherited. For example, you might be happy that you inherited a cherished family heirloom, like a doll that belonged to your great-grandmother. Or maybe you're grateful that you grew up in a family that was bilingual and received the intangible inheritance of speaking 2 languages fluently. There are other inheritances that we may see in a more negative light, maybe even as burdens or problems. That might be especially so when it comes to some of the intangible things we inherit, perhaps a particular history or culture or experience. I have inherited many things from my mother, who is now in her 90s. To start with, I inherited half of my DNA from her, what created me and helped make me genetically me. I have also inherited material things from my mother, Some years ago, she gave me various possessions of hers when she downsized and moved from her house into a retirement community. One thing she gave me was this little figurine of Saigo Takamori, a famous samurai who led a rebellion against the Meiji government in Japan in 1877. It belonged to my grandfather, her father, who admired Takamori, and I remember seeing it every time we visited my grandparents when I was a kid. I especially liked the dog. So this figurine holds good memories, and I'm happy to have it. I also received other things of my mother's, including Japanese dishware, old books, and family memorabilia. Unfortunately, this is what some of those things look like right now, because I still haven't gotten around to sorting through them. That's our garage, and that is a kind of a car-sized pile of my mom's stuff. That's why we only have one car. I'm glad my mother gave them to me, although maybe not so happy about the task of going through them and deciding what to do with them. Maybe some of you might be facing a similar dilemma with stuff that you inherited. And in addition to DNA and material possessions, I have inherited intangible things from my mother that have added meaning or pleasure to my life, including a love of writing and reading, a love of music, and a fascination with crossword puzzles. But there are other things that I inherited from my mother, things that I didn't see as gifts, but as burdens. During World War II, when my mother was a young teenager, she and her family, her parents, brother, and 2 sisters, were among the 125,000 Japanese Americans who were unjustly removed from their homes, jobs, and lives on the West Coast and sent to incarceration camps scattered in remote areas of the country. Some of you might be descendants of those who were incarcerated, or maybe even you yourself might have been in camp. My mother, at age 13, was sent together with her family to the incarceration camp at Poston, Arizona, bringing only what they could carry. And that is Poston. They lost their home, my grandfather lost his business, the family lost their beloved animal, their doggie, and my mother lost the happy and secure life that she led in Los Angeles. Her life was upended and forever changed. These devastating events disrupted and damaged my mother's life in many ways that she herself was probably unaware of. Like so many other Japanese Americans, she carried on with her life after the war, repressing and denying her anger, pain, and sorrow in the interests of surviving and moving on with her life. But the trauma from an experience so deep and so wounding will emerge in some way. It shaped the way she felt, thought, and lived, and it affected the way she raised us, her children. To be honest, I had a complicated relationship with my mother. The effects of the trauma she suffered from being incarcerated is part of my inheritance from her. And here I want to pause to say that, I love my mom. We're in a good place now. I'm grateful that she's still with us at age 94, and we're going to see her in another hour or so for Mother's Day. So, my life with my mom isn't all about trauma. It's just a piece of my life, but it's a piece that I want to talk about in my Dharma talk today. I'm not alone in inheriting this kind of intergenerational trauma. Recent research shows that even 4th generation Japanese American descendants of World War II incarcerees are deeply affected by their family history. These people are mostly in their early 30s and 2 generations removed from the camps. So they weren't in camp, their parents weren't in camp, but yet they're still suffering from the impacts. The trauma of their grandparents and great-grandparents was passed along to them and affected their identity, their career choices, and their mental health, among other things. Now, I could say this was an inheritance I could do without. Who would want to have handed down to them a family history of loss, displacement, and trauma? I didn't ask for it. It's not a pleasant or a joyful gift, but here it is, my inheritance. So I have to ask myself, is this inheritance my destiny? If I inherited this, will it be a weight around my neck forever? Does it inevitably determine my future? I think this is where Buddhism can give us some perspective. In Buddhism, we have the concept of karma. In American popular culture, people often think of karma as a kind of cosmic force of reward and punishment. So people say that if you do something bad, like steal someone's parking space or embezzle money, you're creating bad karma, and something bad will happen to you in return, a kind of cosmic punishment. Or if you do something like give a needy person the shirt off your back, you're creating good karma for yourself, and something good will happen to you as a kind of reward. This view of karma is reflected in this popular saying, "What goes around comes around." But that isn't what we mean by karma in Buddhism. The word karma in Sanskrit simply means action or doing. It means that when you intentionally take an action, that is, you make a choice and do something through word, thought, or deed, that action will have results with future consequences. It is a process with no judgment in it. It's just the way the world works. So karma is not a divine form of justice that rewards good acts and punishes bad acts. Karma is not out to get us. The circumstances that arise in our lives are the result of actions taken by us or others at some point in the past. We create karma through our own individual actions, but we are also the recipients of karma, of the actions taken by others, individually and collectively. In that sense, you could say that we inherit karma, those circumstances that we received, that we didn't ask for, that we didn't expect or plan for, and that we may or may not want. I feel that this particular karma, the intergenerational trauma I inherited as the child of an incarcerated Japanese American, was a burden. I resented it. I struggled with it. It affected my sense of my identity, my relationships with other people, the way I moved about in the world. I wanted to be free of it. Without knowing exactly why, I felt compelled to begin researching my family history and my genealogy. I started studying the history of Japanese Americans in the United States, and especially about the World War II incarceration. I began attending Day of Remembrance commemorations. I started visiting the sites of the incarceration camps, including those that I had no family connection to. I interviewed my mother about her life and recorded her memories. From this, I gained a greater understanding of my mother, her lived experiences, the suffering she went through, and how that made her think and act in certain ways. I was able to see her more clearly, and I think with greater compassion. I could understand that she was doing the best she could with what she had to work with her karmic circumstances. I could try to give up the desire for control and my wish to make my mother a different kind of person, and instead move in the direction of understanding and acceptance. I think this also gave me a better understanding of who I am. It connected me with other people, many of whom were on their own healing journeys to understand the history, to come to terms with it, and to transform it into something helpful. I made friends who have enriched my life, who become a part of my community. And I began helping others to uncover their family stories. Without consciously realizing it, what I had been doing through this process of learning, of self-examination, and community building was looking differently at these karmic circumstances that I inherited. I was no longer judging them as good or bad, positive or negative. Instead, I was using them kind of as a tool for understanding my mother and myself better, to create connection, and to try to create a better future. I don't think it's a coincidence that this process was really unfolding at the same time that I began following the Buddhist path. There is the karma we inherit, the karma we made, and the karma that we create now. We cannot change or control difficult past karma, but in the here and now, we can transform our relationship to it and the way we think about it. Instead of fighting those karmic circumstances or feeling victimized by them or judging them, we can see them for what they are, simply causes and conditions. I think that's one of the most valuable teachings of Buddhism, to give up our dualistic thinking and realize that even our most painful and difficult experiences can be our teachers. They can be paths to self-knowledge and developing greater compassion. With that as a starting point, the karma, the actions we choose to make now, in the here and now, can be more thoughtful, more helpful, or more constructive. I talked about inherited karma trauma today, but I don't think that this is dark or depressing. At least I hope it hasn't been. In fact, because I think it is about transforming that into hope and transcendence and gratitude. I'm grateful for my mother. I'm grateful for the causes and conditions that have created my life and given me the opportunity to learn from what happened to her and to learn more about both her and myself. Today, Mother's Day, I hope you will reflect upon what you have inherited from your mothers, whether she's still here in your life or not. Whatever your relationship may be with her, you have inherited something from her. What is your inheritance? What will you do with it? How can you find gratitude in it? Thank you. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you very much.